Meeting order. Could everyone please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jake, can you call the roll, please?
Butler?
Here.
Jordan?
Here.
Lipscomb?
Here.
Oakridge?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Rash? Vincenzo?
Here.
All members are present.
First item on the agenda this evening is the minutes from the May 1st meeting. Does everyone have received their copy? And does anyone have any questions?
Need recess?
We'll take a 5-minute recess here for a minute.
Let's check what legal clauses.
Bill, can I talk to you for a minute? Bill, while this is a public hearing, it is during council meeting, and you are prohibited from attending council meetings at this time.
So you are saying you're taking away my constitutional right to be
No,
here?
sir. Here's half leave.
No problem. I appreciate that. Oh, I never do get in trouble. I know. Later.
Okay, we're back in session, and I'll explain to everyone here this evening. While there is a public hearing going to take place on a zoning change, it is taking place in a St. Clairsville City Council meeting. So Mr. Brooks has been temporarily banned from attending those meetings, so he had to be removed. Okay, now we'll go to the minutes. Has anyone got any questions about the minutes from the preceding meeting? Okay, does anybody have any questions? We will accept a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Take a roll call vote.
Butler?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Lipscomb?
Yes.
Oakridge?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Rash?
Yes.
Vincenzo?
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, the minutes from the May 1st meeting are official. Okay, again, the first item on the agenda from this point is the public hearing on the zoning change. Kind of make everybody aware, what we try to do is, because in the past we've had some meetings get a little disorderly and out of sorts at times, so we've kind of set down some, not strict rules, but we try to conduct orderly and respectful meetings. And due to the fact that they are recorded, if people speak and interrupt anybody, then it's hard to get a recording of the actual facts. So Mr. Murphy will be conducting the hearing, but before people can speak, they need to be recognized so that we don't have people talking over each other, like I say, because they are being recorded, and we want to make sure that everything is being said is legible and perfectly understood. Mr. Murphy, anything you'd like to add to that?
I just was going to say that I'm requesting that everybody be cordial with each other. If someone's not being cordial or disrespectful, you're going to be stopped from speaking, and you will not be able to address any questions again. At the Planning Commission meeting, there were some people that were coming forward and rather just stating their opinion on the rezoning, they were starting to insult various people in the crowd, and that's unacceptable, so we're not going to accept that. That's all I want to add to that at this point.
Okay. Hopefully, like I say, please be respectful, not only to everybody here, but to each other, because so that I'm sure everybody wants to hear. So at this time, I'll turn the public hearing over to Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Jim. This is the City Council public hearing for the zoning amendment request petition by ICR to rezone a 17.5-acre parcel from office and institution to C1 commercial. Many or all the council members have received what the Planning Commission received as well. We do have the petitioners present, and in a little bit they'll step forward and make their presentation for council. Council, you can ask them any questions. At that point in time, the public may come forward and state their opinion on the rezoning request, and you can ask questions. Again, we're expecting everyone to be respectful. Anyone wanting to speak must come forward to this microphone, state your name and your address, and we can proceed from there. And council members, if you do have questions of me, then you can also ask me as well. Ken or Chris, whomever come forward, you can step up to the microphone and proceed.
My name is Chris Liebers. I'm here on behalf of ICR Property Management this evening. On the TV monitor is just a visual. It's the preliminary site plan as it is now, so you can kind of get an idea. And I'll go into a bit of detail about where this property is located, but just so everyone has a general understanding of what we're going to be talking about here this evening. So first, thank you, members of council, for having us this evening. And Tom, thank you for your help getting us to this point in this process. We're here following our meeting, as Tom said, with the Planning Commission on March 13th of this year, at which it was the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the application to present to council here tonight. To recap what I think all of you have in front of you or have been presented, it's our intention to gain approval of the zoning change from the current zoning OI to C1 on the property at 48160 National Road. The subject property contains 17.56 acres and is located on National Road. As stated, the current property zoning is listed as OI. However, we propose to rezoning of the property to C1 to be able to construct a Honda Power Sports dealership, as well as possibly parcel off in the future for other commercial and or residential applications included in C1 as presented in the application submitted to Mr. Murphy's office. As Tom said, it's worth mentioning many of the comments and concerns of substance during the meeting with the Planning Commission. What we found were regarding traffic, noise, illumination, things like this. Under the current designation of OI, there are many land uses that were not mentioned at that prior meeting, but as you all know, that are currently not in place, including, hospitals, schools, social halls, and under conditional basis, uses such as drive-up window services, research labs, or organizational hotels. Given the proper development, these types of facilities could already be in place, whether the zoning designation is amended or not, making those concerns, in our opinion, geared toward the development of the land, not necessarily toward the actual zoning change. We understand any development, whether the land is designated OI or C1, will still go through the site development phase, during which we look forward to working with the city to meet all specifications as outlined in City Code 1141.08. Upon purchasing this property, our intention became creating highest and best use of the land and location. We believe the approval of this zoning change to C1 will help to accomplish this while also creating positive growth for the city. With that, I'll open it up to any questions that you guys have on the presentation that you've been given, or any comments or concerns.
Kind of a timeline, like if it gets approved, how soon would you be doing it?
There's going to be a lot that goes into it, and so with the finalization of the timeline of the approval process, then comes the site development phase. And with that, a lot is contingent on existing utilities and what it's going to take. For those of you who don't know, are familiar with ICR Property Management, the main company is ICR Equipment Rental Sales and Supplies. So we've got the means, equipment, personnel to be able to do this. There's just, it's too preliminary to be able to tell.
Out of that 17.56 acres, how much will your Honda take on that 17.56?
The initial parcel that we're discussing is a 20,000 square foot building with a surrounding parking lot and landscaping at the end of the property facing on Route 70. And so that is as far as you can come off of National Road for that parcel. It had, again, very preliminary, and not dodging, but it's very preliminary, so it's too hard to really give a good answer on that.
Thank you.
Could you try, I mean, I understand you can't get a specific number, but you said how big is the building?
It's a 20,000 square foot building.
So if it was just that building, is that an acre? Is it 2 acres? Is that
I'd say an acre would be a fair guess for
Okay.
just that.
just the
property.
building, then a parking lot, so not holding you to exact numbers, but just trying to wrap my head around it a little. Of 17.56 acres, maybe 2 or 3 acres for the building and parking lot?
I think that'd be more than fair for the initial parcel for the building that we're talking about, yeah.
And then you would hope to further develop the other 14 acres?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
One more question.
Sure.
How many employees do you think you plan on having out there?
So in our current location in the Ohio Valley Mall, we've got 9 full-time employees there. It's more of a condensed space, so if we were to expand, I'd say between 15 and 20 total employees.
I was going to state for council's thoughts too, and for the public as well, it's a 17.5 acre parcel. There's quite a bit of elevation differential, and whether it would be developed as office and institution or commercial, much of that land area may not be developable because of the slopes only, and it would have to be utilized for stormwater management. So out of the 17.5 acres, maybe there's could be 14 or 13 that can be developed. No one knows at this point in time until someone can go through the site plan review.
Is that everyone?
I'm good.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
And at this time, are there members of the public that would like to come forward, state their name, their address, and just any questions or concerns? There's a gentleman who'd like to come forward, please. Sure.
You do?
My name's Ron Pursuti. I moved here in 1976, been a resident of this city since then, and I live at 48185 National Road. And I thank council for allowing me to speak now. I do have a few questions. I'm not for or I'm not against the development that's going to occur west of town. I just want to make sure that the council knows maybe what they're getting into, and some of the hoops that we had to jump through when we tried to build our building. I want to make sure there's equity in everything that we do here. Let's talk about ingress and egress. You guys do have your egress going west of Dr. Pogus' house, correct?
As it's shown there.
As it's shown there,
Yes.
that's proposed, right?
Yeah, Mr.
Which is
Chairman,
subject to
you're
change, right? As it sits there, anyone who's driven west of town knows that that's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. You're going down the hill there. I bet you have maybe 30 yards before you come to that driveway right there going 45 miles an hour. It's a very bad place to have your ingress and egress. I think before council really thinks about putting this in, there's certain things that you really need to know. I know that is a site map, but there's some, for instance, the traffic, is there going to be a light there? Have you gone to ODOT? Because anytime you build a commercial facility, ODOT has to approve your ingress and egress. I think that's important for you guys to know, because if it does change that, that's going to change the whole look there. And you're looking at it and saying, boy, I hope it looks like this. Well, it might not end up looking like this. So if you can get ODOT approval for the ingress and egress, I don't have a problem with that. But until you do, I do have a problem with it. When the building's built, will you have another meeting about the size of the building and the construction of the building and stuff like that? Or does that just go through a committee and it's done? Anybody know that?
I could, if you want, I can jump in and answer both of those questions. Mr. Pasuti does bring up a good question. It is on 40, which is an ODOT controlled road. We have already reached out to them to say, hey, in these scenarios, what does ODOT do? ODOT requires that the state what they call the State Highway Access Management Manual be followed. So throughout the entire planning process, they would have to be involved, and traffic study would have to be done. They might tell the developer, hey, you have to move your access from here to here. They might say, well, you have to put in a traffic signal. They might say the speed limit might have to be reduced there. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to go into it.
Don't you think council should know that, though, before they vote on whether it should pass or not?
Well, council has been, they don't have to have the results of the traffic study. We have a site, the second part of the question before you interrupted was that there is a site plan phase before the city. So ODOT has already been notified. The petitioner would have to follow any plans that ODOT requires. So that has been looked at. And as I mentioned, the second part of the question that he had, the answer is we do have a site plan review phase. That is before the planning commission. Residents that are adjacent that touch this property would be notified. It is still a public meeting, so people could come to that, but it's not a public hearing. So there would be an opportunity. There would be another opportunity.
Thank you for clarifying that. One last thing. Well, there's two things I really want to bring up. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but to the east of the present house, the Rice's house, there is a septic tank and a leach field in that field right there. And I notice you have that, you don't have it closed off because I don't think you'll be able to build anything where that leach field sits. It's in two people's deeds that own property across 40, and their sewage goes under 40 and drains into that property. So be aware that there is a septic tank and sewage being leached in that area. It's kind of important for you guys to know before you build something, especially if you want to put an egress where it's flat. So that's an issue. Second thing I want to tell council is we attempted to build a building in 2007. We are required to have state-approved plans. We are required to have our building completely bricked. We were told even what kind of landscaping we were supposed to put in. I just hope council, before they go ahead and do everything, crosses the same T's and dots the same I's that we had to when we attempted to put our building in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I'd like to come forward, please.
My name's Rodney Earlymine. I live at 48280 National Road. I'm totally against it for one reason. You got a hospital going in there, and this traffic thing is not safe to come out onto my driveway now, this time of year. All you gotta do when you leave here is go west and see what the sun is. That's on a Nolva Hill, and they still won't tell you what else is going in here. We have to live out here. So here's something you remember when you go to vote on this. Do you want all this beside your house? You already got one in the town that's congested. Now you're gonna have two with a hospital.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who wants to come forward to address council or ask a question?
Yeah. My name's John Pocus. Does this work? Does this work very well?
Can you hear fine?
It's being recorded.
It doesn't project.
Does it
What is that?
amplify?
No.
I don't have a big voice, so I'm sorry about that. My name's John Pocus. I live at 48158 National Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Appreciate that. This isn't as long as it looks, but I do have some notes. I'm not a very good speaker, so I apologize in advance. One question, I don't know if it was actually answered for Ron. He said, I think, if I understood his question, he wanted to know if council, or if Ron, tell me if I'm incorrect, council, there are a lot of specifications that need to be done before you build a building. You have to have all this done. There's not a lot of specifications. I don't know if you can get that prior to the zoning change, but I think when you change zoning and have an open door to a lot of things happening, there's maybe some bad results that may end up that you may not foresee. I don't know. I guess that's just a point I wanted to make that I don't think was answered when everyone asked that question. Nearly 20 years ago, this property was annexed to the city with the stated thought of development. It was zoned for office and institutional in keeping with the desired business types and the character of the area. A lot of the inertia for development was due to the original family not selling the property. Development's closer to happening now, and St. Clairsville now controls that direction because of the zoning that's in place. If you change the zoning, you change the possible direction of that. The zoning commission 2 months ago recommended changing the commercial to commercial 1. Some of the reasoning stated at that meeting was the concern for development of non-desirable business and having a known entity, the Honda business, is the proposed business. This reasoning fails due to the proposed business at the time did not have Honda approval. I guess you go through Honda. Does it have Honda approval yet?
No, we haven't done anything. It's not.
Okay. So there's no Honda approval yet. There's no ODOT approval. And there's also an open door to possibly non-desirable businesses with the development of the other acreage. It was also stated that the concerns raised by area residents were more prejudicial than probative. Due to all the drawings, the plans, they're not really substantive in location of buildings, the location of the ingress and egress, and the uncertainty of other potential businesses. I would suggest there wasn't very much probative on the side of the zoning change proposal. For instance, you have the ingress, egress there. It could very well be 40 feet up the road. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's, I mean, so the drawings look nice, but they really don't mean a whole lot. I mean, the building could be up on National Road. Yes. Is that correct too?
Again, this is all preliminary.
Right, I understand that, but that's, the question is, could the building be on National Road?
John, when you're addressing, if you have questions for them, maybe jot them down, because they might not be able to be picked up by the speaker. So it's fine if you want to ask specific questions, but maybe so they can respond to all of them at once, because you might not be able to pick up what they're saying.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Can you hear that, Jen? Can
I
you
got
hear
it loud and clear.
Okay.
I don't understand what you're saying. What do you want me to do?
In other words, you're at the microphone
Yeah.
speaking so that that can be picked up by the recordings. If they're in the audience, he might not be able to hear the responses.
Okay,
Which would be
okay.
part of that recording.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah, okay, yes. But I wanted to give and take on a couple
Okay,
questions.
well, if they can't hear the answers, then they can't be.
Okay, they can
recorded.
come up, they can walk up here if they like, I guess.
Right, that might
Okay.
be the better way to handle
Okay,
it.
that might be. If the council votes for zone change, I believe you leave St. Clairsville as a less desirable place to live and lowers the reputation of the town. Already on the eastern gateway of the city, which you didn't control any of this, but there's a garbage transfer station being built near one of the historic houses in Belmont County. St. Clairsville's biggest asset, and why I moved here 30 years ago, is that it's a nice bedroom community and a desirable place to live. Opening up the western gateway to the city to potentially non-desirable businesses takes away from the city's appeal. With St. C still trying to maintain city status and being precariously close to being a village, making areas such as Spaceview, one of the city's nicer areas, a less desirable place to live, seems counterproductive. The proposed business is established and will likely not add substantially to St. Clairsville's residential population. Allowing non-desirable businesses would be the first domino to fall in turning Route West 40 into even more non-desirable entities, which you don't control. The only area that's zoned out there is the area that's been annexed. Everywhere else, my property, across the street, all on both sides of Route 40 is not zoned. You put non-desirable businesses in there, those businesses, those other areas, I'm talking like 10, 15 years from now, probably will sell to other commercial areas which you won't control, you won't benefit from, and it might be another garbage transfer station. That's what you want to do. That's the legacy of this council administration potentially. If you look, now the city has a buffer to control the type of businesses because it is zoned. The annexed area is zoned, the zoning commission voted to give that away. If you look at Route 40, on the west side of Route 215, there are 3 60 to 70-foot highway signs. There could be potentially those in the zoned area, property if changed, and certainly the non-zoned areas that you don't control, you may put those kind of signs up. It'll just look like any other exit ramp off Route 70. There are residents of this area, my neighbors, that have potential presently and have in the past had city businesses and pay taxes to the city. If, for instance, one of our neighbors lives there, if they lived in Morristown, for instance, if you sort of run them out of that area, they might open a business there. They opened a business on Main Street instead. One of my neighbors has a business on Main Street. It's potentially somewhere else if you're running people out. You're also giving away those potential opportunities. The non-zone area around the acreage would likely develop poorly. This would be a legacy of the council and administration. The property was purchased for development, and within the office and institutional, there are many opportunities, especially as businesses grow. Does the city have a, and I'll ask you, Tom, I guess, if you can hear the microphone, or the microphone can hear you. Is there a development of director in the city?
Development of?
Director of development, somebody that tries to attract businesses.
No, there's not that specific, but.
Okay, I just thought if there was, this would be probably a golden opportunity for them to attract businesses. 2 months ago, well, now, I don't think the zoning commission was properly introduced. I didn't know who was on the zoning commission. Emily is on the zoning commission, Emily Shortle?
Emily Shortle's on the planning commission.
Planning commission, yes. Is she, she's not here?
No, she's not here tonight.
Okay. Question then, I guess, Christy, you're on. I didn't know who you were either. I'm sorry. I'm John. Hi.
Hi.
A question specifically for you. Would, if this zoning area commission was, if this was changed to commercial one, could a business such as a Pilot Travel Plaza go in there? No, I'm asking Emily.
You don't have to ask her, I can answer.
No, I don't, no, I want to ask Emily.
This isn't a court of law.
Well,
It's a public hearing.
right, I know, but my question
She can
specifically for
answer.
Christy.
Well, if she can't answer it, she can.
Okay, can you?
I cannot answer that. I don't know every specific business that is in there. I would defer to Mr. Murphy.
Okay,
Yeah, and, go ahead.
good.
And John's already asked this question before. someone could have a gas service plaza there. Someone could have a service station. That's all not as currently zoned right now, office and institution, but as a commercial zoning, something like that could go in there. And I'd like to point out something too, is that it seems like we're looking just toward the negativity of what could happen there, you know, the possible land uses. There's positive land uses that can go in there in a commercial district. I'm not advocating that council should vote one way or the other, but I guarantee that when the Respecs Plaza or Plaza West was developed, there was a lot of negative comments there. And that's a hugely successful plaza within the city. That has a lot of positive land uses, and it's a good development. And we look at that now as something that, wow, look what happened there. There's a lot of income tax coming in, the property tax values. I don't know whether it's, sometimes I hear in the Ohio Valley, people look toward the negative things. Let's look toward the positive what can happen. Jobs, income tax, new development. Just because someone's developing a piece of property doesn't mean it's going to have a hugely negative impact. As far as different land uses, they're all listed within our commercial district as what can legally go in there. If a certain land use is not listed in there, but someone sees it as a potential retail, there is a step within the city called substantially similar use that someone would have to petition the Board of Zoning Appeals for. I mean, I hear so much negative. Let's talk about positive. What can we do to our community that makes it positive? We have, right now, there's a local landowner that wants to develop the property. And they have some input too, and I'm sure they want to make it, if it's a nice development, it's only going to make it better for them and better for the community.
Do I have the floor, or did you have the floor? I don't know. It sounded like an advocation for something to me,
You have a
but.
question, John?
Yeah, no, I have continued comment.
I was answering.
I did have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, was that advocating or not advocating? That sounded like an
Just stating a
application.
fact.
Well, okay. I guess one of my concerns was is it called the Zoning Commission, Planning Commission? The Planning Commission, you voted for, you seconded the motion to do this. You don't know what can go in there and what can't go in there. You change it to commercial
I know
one.
some things that cannot go in there. It is not industrial.
Well,
It is
right.
not industrial.
Right,
It's-
but a Love's Plaza could go in there, a Pilot Plaza could go in there, and you voted for that, and you seconded the motion, you did not know. I just think, that flabbergasted me at this point. And I guess the second one, Christie, you did remark that it was more probative than prejudicial 2 months ago.
That was not my statement.
Yes, it was.
I will tell you my statement. I can restate it just fine. I explained that in my other job, when we're talking about evidence being allowed before a jury, it's a weight. Does the prejudicial effect of this evidence outweigh the probative value? I kind of looked at this whole situation the same way, the whole picture. Do the benefits outweigh the negative? Does it benefit the entire city as a whole more than it negatively affects the city as a whole? I think that the benefits outweigh the negative.
But I'm,
Whether it's a gas station, I don't think that they intend to put a gas station there.
but you don't know.
But
You
I don't know.
And you voted for
But
something.
if they did put a gas station in there are very strict regulations for gas stations, and I'm sure that our city would make sure that they followed all of those regulations.
Right. So regardless of how strict it is, if you put a Love's Plaza out there, it's going to be a non-desirable business. It's going to attract other non-desirable businesses. You're going to turn the west end of the city into something like the east end, which you have a garbage dump there.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand what a non-desirable business is from
Garbage
your
dump.
perspective.
Any type of.
A gas
any type-
station, like Love's gas station, like
I
that
think
food store is a nice
I think
building.
a truck stop on that west end of town would not be good for the city.
And
I think-
I'll point out, a truck stop isn't permitted in that
Well,
zoning district.
uh,
Someone would have to petition.
A
for
large
substantial
gas
use.
station, you would consider, would you agree, and I don't want to get, just, that there's different definitions of non-desirable.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And likewise, I'm not necessarily against development. This property was purchased with office and institutional in it. is a zoning. It was zoned that way, that's what the purchaser received. I don't know if there was an expectation on their part that the zoning would go right through. I don't know. I don't know what kind of conversations were happening. I've talked to 2 to 3 developers that wanted to buy my land, my property, and the property next door throughout the years. And every one of them got they said they came to a purchase price agreement, but they put contingencies in there that the sale would go through if the council changed the zoning and ODOT approval. So they weren't going to buy the property unless those things were in place first of all. This didn't happen in this case. Now, I don't know about the ODOT approval or that type of thing. I don't know how much homework's been done on that end, but it's when everyone else did the due diligence and said, we have to get this zoning, we have to get that zoning changed before we purchase the property, and this purchase didn't go through that way. It's just it's a question to me of what's going on with this. I just don't know. One of the most probative points I'll make that I believe that night, a local realtor who, if I can paraphrase, said, you as a group, the zoning change committee, planning commission, we're not voting to put a Honda dealer in there. You're voting for a zone change that allows many different entities to go in there. Almost everything else said that night was prejudicial from a lot of the resident standpoint, but I think the most probative thing is this can happen, but it could be something entirely different, and you don't know, and you're opening doors to things that may or may not happen, and may not be good for the city. I mean, I will probably I'll probably move, and I'll probably my kids will sell my property at some point in the future. When you ask about a non-desirable business, it could be any kind of, just go up and down the highway. Get off an exit and look at the kind of businesses that crop up around exit ramps. You guys have some control over this right now that I don't think you really are grasping the strength that you have. You can put an office and institutional business in there. I'm not necessarily against development. When I bought that property, I knew very well that property would be developed at some point. But I thought, wow, the city came in, put an office and institution, at least they're going to put something in there that goes along with the character of the area, and I'll call it a desirable business potentially. Now it could go, there are some non-desirable businesses I think that people would not want to live around that could potentially go in there with office and institution. But if you open to commercial one, almost guaranteed there's going to be some non-desirable businesses in terms of both, not just the residents in that area, but the residents of the city as a whole. I mean, I think St. Clairsville, its biggest asset right now is it's a desirable place to live. If you make it less desirable, then city status will go away. You'll be a village at some point. You're just going to lose a lot of the things that made St. Clairsville attractive to me 30 years ago. I'm going to finish up here quickly. I apologize. The concerns, some of the points raised by the residents were sound points. There were points raised regarding traffic, ingress and egress location, building location, which I think it's not going to be there, to tell you the truth. I think it's going to be, I don't know that, I've spoken to 2, 3 developers that wanted to buy my property. Their engineering differed greatly from the developer. Almost, they talked about having to move too much dirt. There was a travel plaza that wanted to come in there, would have had to change commercial one. They said they had to move too much dirt to make that happen. I know you guys can move some dirt, but I do have a question for developer. I don't know the best way to answer this. You've got a pretty loud voice. I don't know if you can speak up or they can take notes. But where you have that proposed building, do you know what the elevation fall is from Route 40 to that proposed building?
I don't, on these preliminary drawings, I don't. We can get that answer for you.
I know what I got the answer. You should know. I think you would know it. I think your engineer should know. Do you know it's 40 feet. That's a lot of dirt to move. Do you know from that ingress and egress area that you have just west of where my house is, you're probably going to need 25 to 30 feet to pull trucks in there, maybe 40 feet. If you go 40 feet down from where I am, do you know what the elevation fall is there? I'm guessing not either, right?
These are all site plan questions. because that's not really what we're talking about.
Okay, well, I mean, you made a pretty drawing and you put an ingress and egress there that's really not very practical. There's probably a 15-foot drop there. I don't know that you can put that much dirt in there. I mean, you probably can, but I don't know that, I just don't, pre-drawings, but they don't meet, I don't know. And maybe you guys have Plan B too, that you're not bringing out. I don't know. Sorry. Should have wrote this on my own. Yeah. To the council. One quick question too.
John, do you know the answer to your question?
I think I know, but I don't know.
Because if you know the answer, like, let's just not. Like,
I don't know
the
this.
question that you know the answer to.
Okay, that's a good point. But I know, well, I wanted to know if they knew too.
Okay, yeah, I just want us to be respectful, and if you know, let's not try to trick people up. I really want to hear what you have to say.
That wasn't anybody trying to trip anybody up. I thought.
Bruce, are you an engineer?
I was just going to say, so,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
just de-escalating. I think it's important. We have people that we hire for these types of things. All the site planning phase is going to go through city code. So that conversation between me and you, I don't think is helpful for what we're talking about.
Did they do the drawings, or who did the drawings?
The engineer.
Engineer did the drawings, and they have a 15-foot drop there.
I mean, if it was 50 foot, it could still be done.
Okay.
And that's not impossible. That's immaterial. I
It
mean,
can be done, but
Yes.
I've talked to developers, said it wasn't cost effective.
well, maybe it wasn't for them.
Well, maybe
It may
wasn't.
not be for us. We don't know. We haven't went through that expense yet, because in order to go through that expense, we have to get it changed to commercial.
Right, well, and I guess where I think there's much more likelihood that there's going to be ingress and egress farther east from there.
That's
than where you
possible.
look. I think there's a strong possibility of that. But my next question, which I don't know the answer to entirely, but I think I might know, Emily, does she live in the city?
Emily does not live within the city.
Okay, thank you.
And I do want to point out to council that it's not a requirement of a planning commission member to live within the city.
I would assume that. I mean, I think you have a reputation to do anything by the book, and I don't think you're going to have it all. Yeah, and that makes sense. I guess to the council, in closing here, and I apologize again for being lengthy, it is your responsibility to vote on zoning change. One thing to keep in mind is because I don't know if you realize, you need a 3/4 majority on the other side to override the zoning commission recommendation, and that's strong odds to go against. Well, your vote, each of your votes is very important. It's not really worth as much as on that planning commission. You had three people, is that right?
Yes.
You had three people voting. So we had a vote of a non-elected, non-resident zoning commission member who it would seem would have a conflict with almost every zoning change made in this city due to their real estate business. So your vote's not always worth as much as theirs is. They voted something on it. It's a 3/4 majority to override that. That's just something for you guys to think about. And I would also ask the council member who's on the zoning commission to have the courage to change your vote and look at the probative concerns I've outlined. As they said, I don't think anything probative was, because everything can change there. There's really not anything probative there at all. You're just voting to change zoning. Might be a Honda dealer, might be something else. We don't know. You're just opening some doors. Development is close to happening, and St. Clairsville controls the direction. You have the control of the type of business that will go in there. Voting for commercial one gives away a lot of that control. Keeping more desirable businesses enhances St. Clairsville's appeal for residential growth. And again, that's St. Clairsville's biggest asset and concern. I think you have to really be concerned about your residential growth. I would be disappointed also if you voted not to change just based on my concerns. Your responsibility is to the city. It's not to me. But I really believe it's truly in St. Clairsville's best interest, and you're sort of giving away the farm by changing this to commercial one when you control what business is going in there. Businesses are going in there. You can control what's going in there. It is my thought that St. Clairsville's best interest is not to give away that asset. Thank you again. Sorry for the length of talking. And again, I wish I had a better speaking voice too. Thank you. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to stop and say a few things? Please. come forward.
Tom, if I could.
Chris?
Yeah, just, I think it's important to, you know, I think we all follow the line, Mr. Fogus's logic. Sure. I think it's important to refute the implication that the conversations about the zoning change happened before the purchase of the property. Those conversations didn't start. I know, again, we follow the line of logic with that, but if it's going to be black and white, I think it's important to note on the record that those conversations didn't happen until, you know, after the purchase of the property. That was all.
I don't know if, so it sounds like we're finished with public comment at this time. Does council have any questions for me at this point? Mike?
Yeah, first I would agree with Mr. Pizzuti that trying to get something done takes way too long, and requiring somebody to put a certain brick. When I came on council, I didn't like that stuff either. It just takes too long to get something done. But my question is, if we approve the rezoning, the problem with the ingress, egress, and the leach field, how's it going to be any different if we zone it to C1 versus what it is now? We have the same problems, right?
That's a good point. I mean, whether the property is zoned office and institution or C1 commercial, if there's some type of deed in there regarding leach fields, then that's a private property. And that's something that property owners would have to research and figure out how to just accept that or resolve it or make sure they didn't affect that negatively.
But the problems brought up are going to be the same.
Right,
whether it's
no matter what the zoning is or no matter what would go in there, if there is indeed a attachment to a deed, a private deed in regard to that, then that would have to be addressed. But the city wouldn't be involved in that. No?
What is the acreage of the C1 right now?
The acreage adjacent to it?
Yeah.
The antenna site, I'm not 100% sure. It's probably in the area of around 7 acres or so. Right now, that area. And then you have Respects Plaza, that's probably about 17 acres. That Plaza West is also commercial also.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions from council at this time? And I just was going to point out some things, and many of the things said here were brought up at the planning commission member, but the property was annexed in around 2003. It was, I think it was 2001 or 2 that it was annexed. And it was zoned office and institution at that time to hopefully attract office uses, something of that similar character. Development has not occurred under the zoning designation for the past 20 years. One of the main goals of annexing the property was to see it develop and become an important part, a contributing part of the city. That has not happened in those 20 years. This is the first developer in over 15 years that has a very serious interest in developing the site. They are requesting that rezoning to C1 district. Proximity to Interstate 70 and the interchange, which is the exit ramp, is only 600 feet away from this property, make it ideal location for non-residential use. The city, would also wants to be sensitive to the residents that live in this area. None of the residents adjacent to the property are located within the municipal limits. However, the city wants to, no matter whether it's office and institution or C1, we want to see positive development here. We want to see something look good. The intent of the site plan development section of the code, again, whether office and institution or commercial, is to promote high standards of layout, design, landscaping, and construction of development. The whole purpose of that is we want to see development happen on the site, at the same time protecting the entrance of the city to the best of our ability. The intent of the annexation was to have the area within municipal limits that could be developed for non-residential development. Over the years, most of the interest that has passed through the city doors with questions has been more commercial in nature, but nothing has moved forward. The lack of municipal utilities on the site has made it difficult. The current property owner is willing to make those utilities happen, construct the sanitary, construct the water. One thing that has to be looked at by city today is income tax is one of our primary sources of income. Taxes can be generated from this parcel, and right now, there's nothing coming into the city with this parcel on the 17 acres. The new funds could be used to improve infrastructure, whether water, sewer, streets, entrances into the city. And it's already adjacent to commercial properties. As Don asked the question, wheeling and tenant, that's commercial. Respects Closet is commercial. If there are any land uses that would be proposed, whether an office, an institution, or commercial that aren't listed, there is a substantially similar step that they would have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. And hopefully this site, whether present zoning, the whole goal is to create jobs, and nothing's been created out of zoning. These are just things that are difficult decisions, but City Council should try to look at those. Again, this has all been emailed to you, and I'm sure you've reviewed it. And the next question to me from City Council might be, okay, well, what's our next steps? What's our action that we take? And I'll just summarize that. As everyone knows, the Planning Commission recommended in favor of the rezoning. So City Council can either adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission, you can deny the recommendation of the Planning Commission, or you can adopt the modification thereof. If you were going to adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission, a simple majority is needed. If that happens, then you would direct staff to draw up the ordinance. If you deny the recommendation or adopt the recommendation of modifications, then as I think it was John mentioned, 3/4 vote of a member of the council would have to vote on that to do that.
Tom, may I address one thing?
Well, we were kind of finished with the public hearing section, but if you have a question, sure.
Yeah, it's a refutation. It's, just quickly again. Again, I think the emphasis put there in that last statement was this is not developed. It's been 20 years. It's been office institution. Large part, I mean, Linda, you guys just had trouble selling it. There's a new owner. There's going to development happen. Again, you can make it office and institution development. You can make a commercial one development. Secondly, it was pointed out that there was no serious developer in 15 years.
Yeah, and my response to that question would be no one came to the city other than, I think it was OS Hill, that petitioned for a rezoning or anything. No one, people came in with questions, but no one seriously decided to move forward.
I didn't have a question of that. I questioned, is that what you were thinking was 15 years? There were actually some other developers that talked to me as recently as 4 or 5 years ago. I think there was an agreed upon purchase price once or twice. I didn't sell. If I would have sold my property, there would have been probably changes there 6, 7 years ago. So there's been other people looking at that property. It's going to be developed. And I don't have a lot of problem with developing. I think you guys control what businesses can go in there and I think you're giving up a lot of that control if you go to commercial one. That's all. But there has been interest in that. I've talked to the developer, Linda. Is that right? Yeah. I mean, there were purchase prices agreed upon. If I would have sold my property years ago, there would be something else there right now. Thank you.
Mike?
So the procedure would be that we direct, council would vote to direct, it's a majority to have a resolution written up.
What happens is,
We would have to vote again.
no, what happens is council would someone on council would make a motion to do one of those 3 things I mentioned, one of those 3 paths I mentioned.
Could you repeat this?
Sure. One would be to adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The second would be to deny the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And the third would be to adopt the modification of their recommendation.
And then after that,
Once the vote takes place, say, for example, it's a vote in favor of that rezoning, then basically you're directing staff, Elizabeth, myself, whomever, to draw up an ordinance. If it would be in favor, then that ordinance, there'd be the 3 readings, just like any other ordinance.
Again.
Right, okay, you'd have there'd be 2 readings and then a final vote, and then go from there.
Okay, thanks, just want to be clear on that.
Okay, John, you got anything?
No.
Okay, at this time, I don't know if council wants to very quickly discuss anything among themselves here, or if someone at this time would be interested in making a motion or taking any type of action.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've discussed this. I feel like I've listened to the report from the planning commission. I appreciate the input from everybody here, but I'm ready to make a decision. But we need to. So, does anybody have anything that they want to discuss? Chrissy, do you?
I don't have anything I want to discuss.
Okay. I'm ready to, I'm going to make a motion to adopt the recommendation of the planning commission.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the recommendation. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion to adopt and a second. Take a roll call vote.
Butler.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Lipscomb.
Yes.
Obridge.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Thrash. Yes. Vincenzo.
Yes.
All members are in favor, motion carries.
That's going to happen. Okay, council has voted to accept the recommendation of the commission, and at this time, legislation or ordinance to adopt change.
All right, so I'll sit down with Elizabeth, we'll get that drawn up for the next planning city council meeting.
And I would prefer that not be, have emergency language.
We can draw it up.
Is that going to mess you guys up?
Pardon?
I prefer, I'm just speaking, I'm 1 second, so it's just me. I prefer that resolution not to have emergency language. I prefer us to have to be able to go through a couple readings.
Yeah.
Is that going to mess you up?
It won't.
3 readings, 30, and then
We
30 days.
planned on that after we started the process.
Okay, as long as that doesn't, even if we have to, I just feel like the 3 readings are better instead of emergency. I don't want to mess you guys up. I appreciate your patience, appreciate your willingness to develop that. It's just me speaking, right?
We're happy to start on the right foot, and we anticipated that timeline.
But that's just me, like somebody else might want first.
I agree.
Okay. Item on the agenda is under reappointment of Brewster Barton to the Board of Architectural Review. Mr. Murphy, would you, Chris, you going to ask?
Oh, yeah, that's a mayoral reappointment. Brewster's been serving on the Board of Architecture Review for quite a while, maybe even longer than 3 years, but he's a good member, he's in the construction field, so he's a good member to have on that board. So if there's any questions, or Mayor, you have to officially make the appointment, and then they'll...
Right. Tom and I talked prior concerning the appointment, and this gentleman's an engineer. He's got his own business. He's a business person, and Tom said he has been a wonderful member of the Board of Architectural Review. And also, it's hard to get people that want to do this, and he's very willing to, and he brings the knowledge to the table. So I am happy to put forward the reappointment of Brewster Martin to the Board of Architectural Review. Yes.
And he's also been, I will add to that, he's also been a lifetime resident of the city.
He's a resident?
Yes.
Yes.
And
That's
I'm
a
gonna
non-paid
add,
position also.
How about that?
I'm going to add that he's a very upstanding citizen, St. C graduate, I mean, just a really good guy, very intelligent. Couldn't go wrong by reappointing him.
And I think there's still a position left to be filled with that too. So
I think so, yeah. It's all, you always want to make sure the appointees or reappointees are serving there for the right reason. They're not just a buddy of this person or a buddy of that person. You know, they have experience, hopefully in the field. They have common sense, and they look out for St. Clairsville as a whole.
thank you.
He was on the board when I was on the board, when I was chairman of the board.
All right, who's making a motion? You making a
I
motion?
just wanted to say something, Todd. I appreciate, I think I emailed back, and I appreciated the minutes from all the last meetings. I did read them all, and he hasn't missed a meeting. And I talked to several council people to highly recommend him as well, and I trust their judgment. The only thing that I noticed in the minutes, the meeting started at 4 o'clock. Can this be moved to where people normally attend if they work, or is that
It's
something?
up to them.
It's up to the board.
When I started on the board, it was
Well, it was
3:30.
I think it was 4:30 originally.
No, it was earlier. So I was coming from Wheeling, and I was having to leave early. So we moved it back to 4 or 4:30.
One of the members is a teacher in the evening, so it's hard to have in the evening. Sometimes people can't attend in the evening. And this was the time they agreed upon, and they could all attend. And this is not a public hearing, it's a public meeting, so it's mainly just reviewing what's been proposed. But it's up to them to decide on their meeting. We don't want to control them, they handle that themselves. They don't want to micromanage, I guess.
Thank you. I'll turn.
Need a second?
I'll second.
We all second.
Good, second and third.
I'll second.
Okay, take a roll call vote on Mr. Bridger Martin's reappointment.
Butler.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Lipscomb.
Yes.
Oak Ridge.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Brash.
Yes.
Vincenzo.
Yes.
And all members are in favor, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Martin has been reappointed.
Thank you.
Who's going to tell him?
I'll just.
Okay. And maybe just tell him thanks too on our behalf. We appreciate his willingness to do it.
All right.
Okay, the next item is correspondence from Mr. Sean Douglas. I don't know if everyone received a letter. He was going to try to be here this evening to speak. He is a farm assistant at Brewster's, and I believe he works till 8 o'clock, so he may or may not be able to make it in here. Les, would you have a copy of the you want to read for his request?
Dear City Council, I am organizing a 5K run walk to benefit my friend Zach Williams, who has been diagnosed with liver cancer at the age of 35. I would like for the run to take place in St. Clairsville. We plan to piggyback the Summerfest occurring at the amphitheater and offer some options to participants, including glow paraphernalia and candlelit memorial lanterns along the bikeway. The date is Saturday, July 29th at 7:30 p.m. The course is starting behind the courthouse, following Market Street to the National Road Bikeway, and proceeding to the gazebo, where participants will turn left onto Sunset Hutchison Drive, travel past St. Mary's Church, up the hill, and cross South Marietta Street, then follow Wood Road to Norris, and end at the elementary school. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully, Sean Douglas.
Okay, I did talk to, since Matt's not here this evening, I talked to Matt prior to the meeting if this would create police department any issues. He has no problem with it. The only major issue would be the possible with the route. They would be coming from the gazebo up along Hutchison and up Wood Road. The only major issues would be that crossing Route 9 and Woodrow Avenue, which was a very busy street. Matt did say that he would, on his own, volunteer to come in and volunteer his service to hold traffic direction through that particular busy intersection. The only other intersection they would have to worry about, major intersection, would be Sugar Street and Woodrow also. But there, at this point in time, there would be no use of other officers other than that, who was volunteering. And if there were people at the intersections for traffic control along Market Street, they would have to be their volunteers. So that's pretty much it. Also talked to Eric at the rec center to see if that would interfere with them in any way, shape, or form, and he also has no problem with it.
Would vehicles have to be removed from Sunset and Hutchinson? And I ask that because parking's at a premium on that street, both of those streets. Parking's only allowed, well, we've had police officers banging on doors at 6 a.m. for people to move their cars when we used to have the Sam Lumley race. You know, there's not, I don't have an issue at my house, but people that have multiple cars, there's just nowhere to put them.
I guess,
it's something we'll work with the owner. I just found out about this when Jacob sent it this morning, so this was a surprise to me too. So
It doesn't,
we'll work with
it
them and
doesn't
see.
seem like it would be a problem since cars only can park on one side of the street anyway.
and
I would like to
I
see
think
it
by
not
that
making
time,
people move.
I think by that time, starting behind the courthouse and going down, I think by the time they get there, they're gonna be pretty well spread out. Matt even made the comment that once they even get to Woodrow, cross route line, they would be on the sidewalk all the way down to the elementary school. Yeah.
So we have 2.5 months to work that out, basically.
Right, it's not
So
good
we
to-
have plenty of time.
Sure, and he could get with, Sean could get with the chief and work out the details, make sure that they have plenty of,
That was the plan, is to contact Sean.
right.
And, yeah, thanks for that. You're way ahead of it. I was gonna ask you a question. You talked about it.
That was the first thing, as soon as Jacob's email came through, I went, what's this? Because when I first read it, the Summerfest, just so everyone knows, that's not the community days. Because I went, is he confusing that with community days? Because trying to get at 7:30 at night down through there with fireworks and everything would have been a nightmare. So this is, I think Eric said the last concert. Christy, do you have the schedule?
I do.
I do.
I can tell you that.
I
Say that
think
again?
it first to the concern was the route. And
Keep It Cool
they would have
Summerfest
to
is
take
Saturday,
off a lot
July
of intersections.
29th. Yeah.
If any additional
That's it.
police officers would have to be used, they'd have
Now-
to pay for it.
So is either,
We do have, we probably will now, unless there's vacations, we probably will have 2 officers on duty. But we can't guarantee that they'll be able to be there. If there's a call, they would have to respond to the call. So that's the point of discussion that we're gonna have with Mr. Douglas and go through it and say, okay, how many volunteers you have? Because here's what we're seeing, the streets that need to be blocked, and work through.
so is Mr. Douglas or Mr. Williams from St. Clair's?
No idea.
I don't know either. He's a
Before-
pharmacist at Kroger, but I don't know.
What
But
time
it's
did you
the
send it out?
Kroger and
9 a.m. this
Mountain.
morning? I didn't even know there was a race.
So look, I'm not trying to be, you know, I just feel horrible that this guy, 35, got liver cancer. I really do. And I want to support, you know, people trying to help people. I just feel like, you know, and if we can do it, we can do it. But if they're not residents, is that something we should or should not take into consideration? Are we doing the Sam Mumley again? I mean, how many 5Ks? It is, maybe we have a 5K every week, and maybe that's okay, you know? So I don't know. I mean, I want to be very supportive, but I just feel like those are the couple questions that come to mind.
Well, that's why Matt told me he personally had no problem volunteering because of the young man with cancer, and he said he would gladly come in and work that shift himself for that intersection. So I don't know whether the guy actually lives, whether Sean lives in town or whether the young man that's got cancer.
Yeah, I wonder if we don't want to get a hold of Sean.
Yeah, his son's
advise-
on the bottom here.
Right, but like,
Yeah, find out.
ask Jeremy
Like I
as the
said,
service director.
literally
that
this morning
gets
when
more
Jacob sent it out
information.
was the first I heard of this, and I was scrambling to try and get any information. So if council would like, they
Yeah,
can table it and then.
No, but Mike's got a rebuttal, so that's just me.
I guess we should be flattered that somebody they want to come over here and hold the race, maybe we'll spend
They
money or.
might be, yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a good point, though.
Was that desirable or undesirable? Let me think. Guess it depends. Go ahead, sorry.
You have a good point.
But so do you. I mean, it really, I mean, that's kind of cool. I just kind of wonder, like, I guess I always look at, okay, this is great, I'd love to do it, but then what if we get one next week? And then we get one next week, and then we get one next week, and maybe that's all cool because there's a ton of lemonade stands and kids are, you know, whatever. So I'm not anti, I just feel like we need some more questions answered.
It's up to you guys, because again, we just got it this morning, so, I mean, you guys could even say maybe we limit in the summer 3 5Ks. I mean,
Is
that's.
Munley still doing it?
No, the only other one would be the turkey trot.
I think that as far as how many 5Ks and if we had them or didn't, I think the actual nature of that specific race would determine whether it's going to cause us problems or not. Everyone doesn't present the same issues. The Munley race was through the residential streets and on Main Street, and so that created other problems. But this one, I guess we could have one that's not a problem, the next one might be a major problem as far as personnel and manpower. So I think it probably have to take them on a individual basis. One might be okay, one might create problems.
Yeah, and I don't want to, you know, speculate down. I'm just saying that, like, if you say yes to one person for whatever, then you have to be willing to say yes unless there's some overriding reason. So then what kind of criteria is the yes versus the no? Is it the race? Is it the cause? Is it the time of day? Is it the number of people? All of those things. So I just feel like a little more information, and maybe Mr. Douglas will be here because past 8. Maybe he's going to come and we can answer the questions. But if he's not, then Jeremy, if you could just get, but I don't want him to think like we're saying no. Or like.
Well, I don't,
No, it's fair to want to get-
we've got some time, because you say the race isn't until July 29th. Obviously, the sooner
Yes.
that it can be approved or disapproved, gives them time to make sure they get. But
Yeah.
like I say, we're not talking something in the next week or two, so it probably doesn't have to be decided this evening.
How about this, compromise? How about table it for now and see if he comes, and then at the end of the meeting, make a decision. We can go through the rest of the meeting. Gives him time to get here if he's coming.
Yeah, I mean, unless you guys want to vote yes, no, you know.
We're-
I'm fan decided.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving now.
I wouldn't be.
Unless-
Yeah, I think it'd be responsible to have a little bit more facts.
Yeah.
I think that'd be the responsible thing to do.
Okay, so for right now, we'll just table it for a couple of minutes to see if he does before the meeting's over, and that at this point in time, we can bring it back at a later time if council wants to wait. Okay, to the city reports. Mayor, do you have a report?
A short one, yes, I need it to be long, so tonight's report will be short. I had the opportunity to meet with Senator Dolan, who is a state senator from Ohio, and he is also on the Finance Committee. We had a great opportunity to discuss our visions for both the city and the state, and I assured him we can always use more money. So I attended a meeting at Gulfport regarding leases. More information, I'm sure, will go out at some point from Gulfport. Jeremy, Roberta, and myself met with Gabe Hayes, who's with Wallace Pancher Engineering, to discuss a grant for planning that could benefit the connectivity of the bike trail. We're talking about maybe connecting the bike trail from Bridgeport up through Blaine to St. Clairsville. Plus, we would get some additional money for the bike trail, things that we need to do. He's going to let us know to its progress. He wanted to know if we were in favor of it. I think it's a great opportunity as long as we don't have to put money into it. So we'll get more information from him. I had the opportunity to attend the fundraising spaghetti dinner at the Rec Center for the Glencoe Legion that burned down earlier this year. And I was telling Christy, I'm very proud of them. The Rec Center looked great. The only glitch we had, they had 8 Westinghouse roasters plugged in on the one wall, and they blew the fuses, 3 times? So I know you guys are going to look at that, but I said next time maybe just 4 Westinghouse roasters. But it was a very, very nice event. I heard just before we came into the meeting, they raised $21,000 for their Legion, so that's pretty cool. And thanks to Officer Greg Clark, he was down there making sauce and spaghetti, and I made him promise to make some for us at the city building. TJ Stewart and Councilwoman Butler for allowing Glencoe Legion members to sell tickets to the dime. Thank you. I'm all about if a neighbor's in trouble, do what you can to help them. That was a very nice reflection on their city. Thank you to all the St. Clairsville citizens who attended, and I'd like to say thanks to the mall for their senior support day they had on Tuesday, May 2nd. I did not have the opportunity to go, but I understand there were a lot of people there getting information about all the services to our seniors, and I hadn't really thought about it before, but St. Clairsville has got an awful lot to offer, whether it be in nursing homes or senior commons, or even visiting nurse companies for our senior citizens. And as a now senior citizen, I say thank you to all the participants at the mall for organizing this. And that's about it. Like I said, I knew I'd want to keep it short, so.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions for the mayor? Okay, we'll move on to Service Director Jeremy Greenwood.
Good evening, council. I'll make it even shorter. First thing I want to do is apologize to council for the tactics that I used at the last utility meeting. I apologize for that. I was trying to prove a point, and I could have done it in a different way, but circumstances at the time dictated it, but I do apologize. I sent a letter or an email out to council last week on that. Council items for us tonight, 2023-14 revenue and appropriations. That's emergency. That is allowing us to take the $5 million grant that we got from the state and be able to appropriate that money. We got our first pay application for the distribution project. It was $1.2 million. We don't have that in the fund right now to take care of that, so we need to send that money into the Department of Development, get that back and get that paid. Now, I don't know which one of these got numbered which one, but we were asked to have 2023-15 and 2023-16.
15 is water.
Okay, so 15 is the water rates, and then 16 would be the sewer rates. Those are not emergency. There was a debate back and forth with that. We'll do what council wants on that. We just need to make sure we can get moving on that as much as we can. We're already behind the whole, the last rate increase expired, or didn't expire, but it was over a year ago. It was March of last year. In your mailboxes, I had provided the fuel totals that were used. That was asked before. So that information, I was requested, Donnie, that we do that at least once a month, so we'll keep up on that. Our water loss, we found 2 major breaks. We dropped 10%. We're down to 33% now. Still working on a couple other ones. We got a couple other spots. The Dorothy tank, we've got an NOV. That's a notice of violation. What has happened with it, I will give copies of that to council. I'm still dealing with the other side of the EPA. That was from the Ohio EPA. We're hand dosing the tank with chlorine to keep the chlorine levels adequate. Right now, we've had no way to keep those up. So it's better to have the NOV of hand dosing rather than the NOV of not having the minimum standards met for chlorine. I also sent it on email to council. We're having special visitors this week on Wednesday through Friday. Federal EPA is coming in to inspect the water plant. So if anyone is free, let me know if you're interested. Once we have our initial meetings with them, I'm sure we're going to be doing tours of the water plant if anyone's interested. And then Councilwoman Jordan has already reached out, and President Delis has reached out also. The other thing I wanted to go over, a couple things. St. Clairsville Light Power for the 28th, is that year in a row, or is that just, what, 28th year in a row, has won a safety award for excellence. We were the first place in Group A, which is less than 15,000 worker hours of exposure. for safety. It's recognized for safety practices demonstrated by having the lowest safety incident rate within its group, determined by a number of worker hours. According to APPA, there's 283 utilities across the country are entered into these annual safety awards, and they were entered in categories based on the number of worker hours, ranked in the most by incident-free, based on the most incident-free records during 2022. So I want to congratulate Donnie and the guys for that. Speaking of Donnie and the guys, we have hired 2 new guys. I'd like to welcome Frank Rosondo and Mr. Mark Thomas to the team. They started today, and we'll get them up and running. We've already got classes scheduled for them. And then the only other thing, I want to mention 2 other things. We had a notification of a new sinkhole today on Thompson Drive, which we're going to be working on and looking. Looks like it's a culvert. And then the grant the mayor mentioned, we're looking at the potential for using that for the bike trail project, the TAP money that's there. If we can use that, because that project is about $600,000 right now over budget. I think we've exhausted all other options. The only other thing that we have is a potential public-private development or somebody of sponsorship that would be potentially sponsoring that to donate some money. But we're working on that to see what's going on. So I have more, but in the sake of time, if council has any direct questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Beth?
Do you have any questions?
I just thank you for your first comment. Appreciate the apology. And secondly, where were the water breaks? I'm just curious.
One was at the corner of Young and, no, I'm sorry, at Neff's and Clark, and the other one was at Clark and McFadden. The one at Clark and McFadden, we've dug up 3 times trying to find it. We could not locate it. When we fixed the other one, it calmed down the water enough that we could put the listeners on and determine where it was, and we were about 3 feet short of where we were supposed to be.
Well, I just also want to acknowledge that that's huge, right? 10%?
Yes.
Right, as we're talking about, you know, bringing that water loss down as we're getting ready to purchase, so good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeremy? Okay, thank you, Jeremy. And that's not here. Mr. Murphy, planning and zoning. Please go.
I don't know if TJ had anything on behalf of Matt.
No.
No. Okay.
Matt did send an email out to everyone, actually to the building. You want me to read that? Sorry, Tom. I didn't
No, that's okay.
interrupt you, but he was going to pick up somebody at the airport. He said the good news is there's really no new items that I need to bring up for discussion on my end, other than again touching base with the camera system protocol, which honestly I think is a very high cost, and was disappointed that the quotes weren't better considering the number of other priority projects going on in the city. I have no need to push that issue as something that we need to happen in the near future. Training is being attended to and scheduled by individual officers, as well as mandatory training for the department. Equipment is in very good shape. The budget is on track. We have no complaints filed. Officers are continuing to make good narcotic arrest cases and work with multiple agencies to see them through. The only difficulties on the horizon are getting through the normal summer vacation months, keeping shifts filled without too much overtime. That happens every year. We always manage to work through it. If there's any questions, please let me know. One thing I will add is that the hood system has been delivered. It's downstairs. It's not installed yet, but for them to repackage the drugs and go through. So it has been delivered. We just didn't get it installed.
It is, they call it a laminar flow hood, and what it does, it's like if they're working down here, it goes over their workspace. It'll suck the air out, so they're not breathing or getting into any drugs, so it's a real safety thing. Very
That
good
was
to hear
what
that.
Matt was talking about before with BCI? Yes, they want it packaged certain ways when they send drugs up to make sure that they're safe, and our guys are having to do it. And right now they're doing it on the floor in the police station, which isn't very sanitary or healthy or safe. So.
Just one other thing, I had asked Jeremy to ask Elizabeth to prepare the ordinances based on previous discussions that the council has had in utility committee meetings and fine, by ordinance, I mean 15 and 16 with the water and sewer increases. Previous discussions that we have had in the utility committees and the finance committee meetings, then I thought, you know, let's get something to react to so we can continue this process. You know, in the conversations that I've been part of in those two committee meetings, people are understanding that something needs to happen, so I'm the one who had asked him to have these prepared for us to look at. Hoping that we could have a first reading tonight. So I just wanted to clarify that also.
And can I just say one thing? Thank you all for your courage. I know that was difficult tonight, and I appreciate either decision, either way. It was hard, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, and I'll try to be quick. In regard, you might recall there was the oil and shale grant program. We have applied for it. The announcements were supposed to be in mid-April. The announcements have been delayed, so I have no new information there. I wanted to point out too that in the public hearing, not one person that spoke lives within the city limits. There were a couple of people in the audience that were in the city, but none of them spoke. I just want to say sorry to Christie that you have to go through that. Now, any appointee that was on that planning commission from council, I'm sure would have gone through the same thing. I think it's unfair that, you know, people try to pick up one thing. There was a reason I wasn't asked that question, because I knew the answer. So unfortunately, they jumped to find someone that won't know the answer and then try to unfairly comment on that. So I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sure that's why I tried to jump in, but this isn't a court of law. So I'm trying to de-escalate that is a good term. What was interesting too is that it was brought up about one of the planning commission members, and there is not a requirement that they be a resident of the city, because it's difficult to find someone that has that professionalism.
Is he a resident?
No.
That's my point I was going to make, that he's
I was this close.
luckily to come,
I was taking deep
lucky to come to
breaths.
the meeting, make comments, but he wasn't a resident either. We're on the same page there. And just overall, I think council, you made a positive and a progressive decision for the city. There is so much negative comment out there. It's like, come on, you heard it here tonight. Let's think positive. Just because it's developing doesn't mean it's going to be a negative impact on the city. I mean, I think it's going to be a positive impact. This person may have purchased property, and they even stated that they've been approached, and they know that the area is going to develop around it. So that's a pretty speculative purchase to begin with. If you own property in an area that you know that's going to be developed, you can make a profit at that, which is an American way, I guess. But again, council just made a positive and progressive decision on that.
Hey, Tom, I wanted to mention that I think it's unfortunate that I talked to a lot of people that were for it. They didn't show up tonight, so it was all one-sided, but there's a lot of people that were for it.
Well, and I always like to point out is, you know, what is it, 5,096 residents of St. Clairsville at this, according to the 2020 census, and the 4 people that spoke, or however many, were not residents of the city. So I guess council, you can take solace in the fact that 5,096, they weren't here, they must have been in favor.
Well, we all took an oath to do the best for our city, and I think you all made a very conscientious decision to vote to do the right thing for the city, and again, I'm appreciative. I know that took courage. Yeah, and you, Christy, you were kind of getting picked on, so.
It's okay, I'm a big girl. I'm sure it won't be the last time.
We had the word of context.
I did think I knew the answer to that question, but I didn't want to answer incorrectly. And when I don't know something, I ask the experts. As you all know, I call and email, and that's our job. If we get asked a lot of questions as council members, we might not know the answer. We find the answer. So I won't apologize for not knowing that answer.
So I'm on the utility committee, I'm not an electrician. Linda's on the fire district, she's not a fire person.
Right.
You know, so Mike's an accountant, he's the exception, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, you know, you gotta know who to go to.
Right.
That's it.
Okay,
One question for Tom. Technically, all of those ones, the properties that are outside of the city, there's no zoning with them now, so all of these unsavory businesses that were being talked about could be put in there right now.
With
Undesirable.
no public hearings, no, here we have a great opportunity. We can form our development and make sure it's as positive as we can.
By zoning, I mean, there's mechanisms of control here,
Yes.
right? Like this guy, I mean, he wasn't trying to say that this was the picture of how it was gonna be. He was saying, here's a preliminary drawing. So I think it's important that we say, in the press, right, that actually the action that we took gives the city more control. Because it's still gotta go through stages. There's checks and balances in place. So I hope that, Robert, we say that like when we were talking about it, right? And that we truly, we are looking at the whole citizen, we're looking at St. Clairsville for all of the residents and expanding and development. So we can pretend that somebody's gonna come in, and for 20 years they haven't. So here's an opportunity. And so, I don't know.
You're right.
Well, again, too, you've got residents in town that are paying taxes and income tax and property tax that to benefit the city, and if you're gonna live outside the city limits, you obviously, to me, can't be afforded the same
Voice.
luxuries or the same benefits as somebody in town. If they want those, they can petition for annexation. It wouldn't be fair to the residents that are paying the taxes now.
I wouldn't mind like the little next to Bell store. That Bell store is nice. At gas station. So,
Well, and you made a good point, everyone has different definitions of what's desirable or not, and, I'm going to have to get a new eye doctor.
Okay, McDonald's, very good.
he is.
Any other questions for Tom? If not, we'll move on to the council committees, finance, Vincenzo.
Yes, thank you. We'll make it quick. Well, first of all, we did discuss, if you have any financial questions right now, we can go to Dana Goldens, will be our first, and we can always go to Jeremy and go to the mayor. So just keep that in your thoughts there, that we can go to Dana. Right now, the appropriations were about 27.24%. Revenue is about 41.27%. We're looking good on that. A little bit behind on the general fund, but not bad. We briefly discussed union negotiations that will be going on at the end of June. And, they'll be, should be done before the end of June. And we just hit that briefly. And the finance committee, like Beth was talking, we did further discuss the water rates and definitely have some discussions on that. Next meeting will be June 5th, and we'll be back at the 6:15 start meeting on that. And that is all.
Okay, thank you, Don. Move on to utilities.
No report.
No report. Mike, police, anything?
The report I know with Jeremy read, Matt informed us he couldn't be here, but we were going to discuss the camera systems, rather expensive, and I briefly talked to him about maybe getting some kind of corporate donations or individual donations, but we'll have to figure something out for that. He will be available for next month's meeting.
Can I just say one thing, Mike? Very much appreciate the work of our police department. They had a pretty big drug bust. Was that Thursday or Friday night, TJ?
Thursday.
Thursday. And so much of it came because we had a drug dog. TJ saw, or Officer Wayne, pardon me, saw someone that he recognized as a drug dealer and followed them. They saw him on their tail. They took off up and down city streets. He got him. And because of Ruger, is that correct? Tell the story. You were able to search, right?
Yes, there was I deployed canine Ruger on the vehicle with a positive indication, and that then, after searching the vehicle, located a bulk amount of methamphetamine, cocaine, and fentanyl pills. So,
thank you very much. I'm very proud of you
thank
for
you.
doing that.
Yeah.
And the point I'm making too is, I so want to see us take care of our city employees because we aren't the highest paying in the world, but we do the best, and we will do the best we can because we want to keep talent who is quick enough to see this and say, I know that girl's a drug dealer, or, you know, that means a lot. So, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we have a great police department.
We do.
Keeping the city safe.
Ruger's the cutest member, though.
That is.
Can I add something? I
Yes,
don't want to
please.
prolong this meeting, but, you know, I see a lot of officers from this area in my other employment, and our St. Clairsville officers are always prepared for court. Their investigations are thorough. They are very professional. I mean, and I'm not saying that because I'm on city council, but I can tell you I've been at that courthouse for a very long time, and that is the standard in this city.
Thank you for that observation. Appreciate that.
Thank you. We try to make your job easy.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Move on to streets north side. Mike?
No report.
Streets south side. JC?
No report.
Anything on safety?
No report.
Building and grounds?
The next meeting is May 24th at 3 o'clock here at the city building.
Okay, planning commission. Christie?
I just want to thank the council members. I know that you all have had the information regarding that zoning change. I want to thank you all for looking that over, studying that, asking questions. And that's it.
Okay, fire district, Linda.
This month's meeting is Wednesday, May 17th at 8:15 at the firehouse.
I just wanted to say, the morale pretty high there since the levy passed.
Everybody's pretty looking forward to that.
Good.
Any other questions on fire district? Move on to recreation department. Christie?
Yes, the summer concert series starts on Thursday, May 25th with Parrots of the Caribbean, Jimmy Buffett tribute band. I expect to see everyone here in their Hawaiian shirts. And the Summer League basketball starts the first week of June. They are completely full. They have 40 total teams signed up. The next meeting is this Thursday, May 18th at 4:30 p.m. at the rec center.
What time does that start?
4:30 p.m.
No, the concert.
Oh, the concert. Let me look
It's
here.
like
really
7
quick.
o'clock?
Some of them are
They
different.
start-
That one starts, yes, at 7, from 7 to 9.
And I've had a couple people reach out, could we do a parrot hat contest? So I'm going to reach out to some of the businesses, see if they'll give us a couple gift cards. They have like the most outrageous kind of parrot hat. So, very dignified.
Yes, there'll be some in alcohol. And every Sunday.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, with the hat, are you kidding? Yes.
Okay, anything else on the rec department? Okay, move on to park district.
Memorial Day weekend opening is on schedule, and pool passes, the discounted pool passes will be on sale through Memorial Day weekend. After that, the prices will increase to their normal price. Next meeting is Monday, May 22nd at the Park Rotary Pavilion, 4:30 p.m.
You see,
How is the
got a
little
question?
splash pad? Yeah. I do. I know. What are they doing? I know they poured the concrete, but I've seen a couple of little things.
It should be open.
Is it still a splash pad?
Pardon?
Is it still a splash pad?
Yes.
Yeah.
How much is the pool pass? I'm sorry.
I
No,
I was just curious.
I can email them.
Well, but
I think they're
I just
100.
got one family pass is $100.
100 even, and then they go up to 130, I think.
I forget.
Yeah, they're 100.
$100.
It does, the individual's less.
Which is actually pretty good. I think last year she
I think so.
got more than her
Yeah.
money's worth out of it.
Good deal. Yeah.
Okay, move on now to ordinances and resolutions. Law Director Elizabeth Flick.
Okay, I just want to clarify, it's council's request that we add ordinance 2023-15 and 16 to tonight's agenda then?
If everybody's cool with it for the
Yeah.
first reading, no emergency
Just
with
for
the first
reading.
reading.
Okay. All right, there are 3 pieces of legislation before you. Ordinance number 2023, and that's a financial ordinance. It's an ordinance to make supplemental revenue and appropriations for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the city of St. Clairsville, state of Ohio, for the period January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency. And that is for the
$5 million grant.
The $5 million grant.
Development in the Highway PA for the water distribution project. That's to appropriate the funds so that we can spend them.
Okay, we'll do the first reading on 2023-14. Jacob?
Ordinance number 2023-14, an ordinance to make supplemental revenue and appropriations for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the city of St. Clairsville, state of Ohio, for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, that is the first reading. Does anybody wish to take any further action?
I move that the rules requiring ordinances and resolutions to be read on 3 separate readings be suspended and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we have a second on that. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote on considering this emergency legislation.
Butler?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Lipscomb?
Yes.
Oakridge?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Thrash?
Yes.
Vincenzo?
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, 7-0, this will be considered emergency legislation. Jake, will you read it second time, please?
Ordinance number 2023-14, an ordinance to make supplemental revenue and appropriations for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the city of St. Clairsville, state of Ohio, for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to pass that.
Can we need a second?
I'll second.
Take the vote to pass the legislation.
Butler?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Lipscomb?
Yes.
Oakridge?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Thrash?
Yes.
Vincenzo?
Yes.
All members are in favor, motion carries.
Okay. 2023-14 is passed. Next piece of legislation.
The next one up is ordinance number 2023-15. This is the ordinance amending section 925.01B to establish water rates effective at the earliest date determined by law. I want to point out to council that there is no emergency language in this legislation, so it will be by 3 reads. If you pass it on the 3rd reading, it'll take 30 days to go into effect.
Okay, Jake, will you read ordinance 2023-15?
Ordinance number 2023-15, an ordinance amending section 925.01B to establish water rates effective at the earliest date determined by law.
And that is the first reading.
So there could be discussion, right? Right, so I just want to point out that the council has looked at this for a couple months now, about what would be a fair amount, right? Understanding that nobody wants to raise rates for anything, understanding that everything has gone up, and we're not trying to, we're sensitive to that. But the reason we came up with this amount, or agreed to this amount, is that 56% of the residents that get water and sewage with the rate increases we're proposing in ordinances 15 and 16, 56% of our customers, their bill will go up $3. We would rather not have to raise it, but costs have increased. Costs will continue to increase. So to be responsible to the needs of the city, we had to agree on some kind of increase. So we really want our residents to know. Now, it goes up more if you use more water, obviously, but we felt like that was a place to start with the $3 for 56% of the residents. And I know people complain about the water rates in St. Clairsville and the utility rates, right, and the electric and the water and the sewage, but we also have done some research with other municipalities in this area, and their rates are higher. And I would just say that to say that we're trying to be as sensitive to residents as possible, but responsible to the city also. So I just kind of want to make those public comments when we go into, I'm not going to say it again, when we get to sewer, it's the same deal, because the bills go up $3 for both the water increase and the sewer increase. I just want to talk about the sensitivity to the residents, but the responsibility to the city.
I have a question. On the number 15, the 0 to 2,000 gallons, block 1, it says the first 2014 is 84. That's the new rate, or is that the increase?
That's the new rate.
Okay, I thought it was higher than that before. Okay.
It was $13.49. It's currently $13.49.
Have anything that ever been charged for block 1 now?
1349, it goes 14.
Well, minimum. The block 1 is anybody that uses minimum or less.
So minimum is 2,000 gallons.
So it's not 14, it's really 28 something, 29.
For water and sewer.
No,
I'm sorry, for water, yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying that 1349 is what it currently is, but it's really 2690, whatever 1349 times.
Right, your minimum balance.
2698 for water is the minimum right now.
Right. So this is, even though it says first 2,000, you still got to multiply that by 2.
Right.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to the second, or next piece of legislation, 2023-16.
Last piece of legislation tonight is ordinance number 2023-16. That's an ordinance amending section 933.02 to establish sewer rates effective at the earliest date determined by law. Once again, no emergency language in here.
Okay, take we first reading on 2023-16.
Ordinance number 2023-16, an ordinance amending section 933.02 to establish sewer rates effective at the earliest date determined by law.
Okay, that is the first reading on 2023-16. That's the end of the agenda to this point. However, I'm going to ask council now if Mr. Douglas is nominated. Does anybody want to take any action on the 5K race, or do you want to wait for later discussion after they talk to Sean?
I definitely want to wait. I'd like
You want to wait?
Yeah, and so I'd like to, Chairman, no more, right? Like, from St. Clairsville, thank you for choosing St. Clairsville for those 20 things. And then I want to say also for the next council meeting, like, I don't want to do it now because I want everybody's bandwidth to be there, but an emergency, we'll talk about litigation for the next one, so I'm just saying now, for next meeting. Executive session, that's the word I'm looking for. Executive session to talk about not legislation, what's a
Litigation.
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 Pending litigation, okay.
I want to talk about litigation. Apparently something's been settled, that's in a private meeting, and so I just want to, I want to be able to talk about that.
Okay, that meeting will be June 5th, so we do have a third Monday in there.
Today's the middle.
Right, so there'll be 2 Mondays.
Today's the
Between, it'll be
Yeah.
3 Mondays.
3 Mondays.
On June 5th. So the next 2 meetings, or the next 2 Mondays, there'll be no meeting. But the next meeting will be June 5th. Okay, if that's all there is at this point, motion to adjourn.